Hey guys, Kev here, and I want to do my full review and conclusion with the TRM Shadow. Three Rivers Manufacturing Shadow here, guys. And I do have a nice cold cherry Coke here to enjoy. So good. So, I want to start by saying I'm very, very appreciative of TRM. They were very kind to me when I reached out about this knife. When it first started being announced and there was rumblings and I heard it was going to be an ambidextrous knife, so it could work the same for lefties as for righties. I got pretty excited because I, like most people, was on the TRM bandwagon, and I had a Neutron that I really liked, but I ended up getting rid of it because it cut me a few times, and it was mainly because it had thumb studs, and as a lefty, I would open it like this and then go to close it, and I would push the lock bar over this way, like you have to as a lefty on a liner lock, and then I would pull the thumb stud down to get the blade to start coming down and then get my finger out of the way and kind of shut it, right? But what would happen is I would put the liner lock over, pull on the thumb stud, and then kind of like somehow my thumb would come up and the blade, would come down, and I would cut the tip of my thumb. And that happened to me a couple times with that knife. So I just got to the point where like I didn't want to carry it when I was like fidgeting a lot, and that's all the time. So I ended up just moving on from it. I liked it. It was a great cutter, great EDC knife. Action was pretty good. It wasn't like dropped shut or anything, but it flicked out really nice. Detent was good. It was a great knife. I understand why there's hype around TRM with the Neutron and the Atom for how slicey they are and the price point for what you get. All of those things are very good. So anyway, I got interested, and at one point I reached out to Marianne. Shout out to Marianne Halpern over at TRM. She's, the leader over there, and I believe Les is her husband, and he kind of designs the knives and everything. And she was kind enough to put me on a list, basically, and I reached out occasionally to touch base, and basically was able to get in there where when they came out with a few, I would get one. And they gave me a slight discount, so I paid, I think, $200 for this instead of, I think, retail is $279. So that was very nice as well. And, I just appreciate them. They went ahead and flipped the pivot screw over here. So now the show side is over here with the shell, and they put the clip on the left side for me. Retuned it and everything. There's absolutely no blade play in this. It's a rock, but yet after break-in, it just drops shut. If you see my unboxing, I had to give it some gas to get it to drop shut. Now it just flops down, like broke in fantastically. So that's kind of the background on how I got the knife. And I appreciate them for that, right? So let's talk about the actual knife itself, right? So what you have here is a 3.5 inch, I believe, 3.5 inch sheep's foot blade, modified sheep's foot, whatever you want to call it. And then you have this interesting handle that kind of curves all the way back on a slight curve, rounds down here, comes around with the swell back here, and then a swell up here, and then you have this really nice, generous finger choil up here to the blade, and then this blade is extremely thin, extremely slicey. It has a very tall, flat grind. It's not a full flat, but it might as well be. Because of how tall it is, it comes down to a razor-thin, sharp edge. It cuts like a dream. They put an excellent grind on here. Has a very nice stonewash finish. This is in CPM 20CV. So you'll see there 20CV and TRM, of course. USA made. There's their logo. So this is made in the USA in their factory in Massachusetts. All parts, I believe, are USA sourced, including the springs. Really, really cool. Just nice to see a company do that. And for the price point, even at $279, that's impressive. It's very well done. This does have these G10 scales on them that are milled out very nicely, rounded on all edges. They did a fantastic job with this G10. Normally, I stay away from G10, but this G10 has been very comfortable. It's been great to carry. So definitely really good. Your blade is dead center. Very well done there as well. Like I said before, it is rock solid. It is an impressive feat to have an Axis style lock. This is called the River Lock. So River-L-O-K, River Lock. And it's basically their take on the Benchmade Axis lock, which has now expired. The patent on it has expired, so companies are starting to use this design more and more. And some key differences between the two, I would say, one, spring tension. The Benchmade Axis lock has a bit more tension in the springs, I've noticed. Could be the size of the blade here, but it has a lot more spring tension. See that when it closes, it just sucks it right in. And when you flick it, that gives you a little bit more of a detent to break past, and it lets you flick it out. On the River Lock, you have less of that spring tension, so you can kind of just easily flop it out here. Once you get it past that, yeah, it's pretty easy to get it all the way out, but you don't have that build-up pressure where you can get a good flick out. I personally end up doing this a lot. If I just take it out of the pocket and go, yeah, a lot of times, yes, it does flick all the way out, but it's not like it rockets out like the Benchmade, like the Bug Out does or other Benchmades. It's a little bit weak on the deployment. That's the best way I can put it. A lot of people are not going to care about that. I personally do. That is something that has bugged me about this knife, and I'm being 100% honest and giving my feedback here, guys. I know we all want to jump on the bandwagon and just take the train all the way home, right? And I love TRM, I do. But I have to be honest. My channel is all about honesty, guys. I'm never gonna sit here and promote a product I don't like, and I'm not gonna sit here and overlook things that whatever, right? And it's not that I don't like this knife. I just don't like that deployment necessarily. It's not bad. It's just not, like I would just say it's good. Like the action is good, but it's not like great, It's not like the Bug Out. It's great. It freaking flies out of there, and I can get it to drop shut. But the trade-off, I suppose, is on my Bug Out, I have a lot of play, right? You get a lot of play. It's a big balance there. This is a rock. Like this pivot is not going anywhere. Laterally, up and down, it's freaking solid as a rock, and it does this on the close. So, that's exceptional. So the action is good. Not great, but good. Okay? We talked a little bit about aesthetics. I guess I jumped ahead there. It's not, to me, it's not the most gorgeous looking knife, and I don't think it's supposed to be. So basically what I've understood is this is basically a blown up TRM Nerd, right? Which is the smaller liner lock knife. And they kind of blew it up here. So you have this 3.5-inch version with this tall blade. And I don't know, to me it just doesn't, it's just not aesthetically pleasing to me. Like, yeah, it's fine. And, it's not like ugly, but it's not like, ooh, I gotta have that, right? Like when I look at a knife like this, my brain just goes, ooh, boy, like, freaking lights go off. And I'm like, yes, need one, right? But this doesn't do that for me. It's all right, but functionally, like what that, with having the aesthetics like this means you have the ergonomics that you get, and you have the blade shape and the grind that you get, and that is where this knife shines better, as good if not better than any knife I've held. So in this back grip, the ergonomics are absolute fantastic. There's no jimping up here, but you don't need it because you are locked in. You have these milling patterns in the handle and this contouring here, and the G10 is comfortable, and you are just locked into this back grip, and you have 3.5 inches of this ridiculous blade to cut with, right? Then you have this generous finger choil that even a Kyle-sized finger could fit into. And now it's even more comfortable like this. And there's nothing that's like poking or prodding or stabbing me. For example, I'm currently in the process of reviewing the ProTech Mordax. And this finger choil is extremely uncomfortable. It looks big enough and it looks comfortable, right? But when your finger is in there, it's like something's trying to cut it off. It's super weird. It just doesn't quite work well. And I think it's the swell in this finger in the flipper tab right here that's like sharp. So it just is uncomfortable, right? On this knife, it's absolute money. You could hold this all day like this with no problem, and you have plenty of room in there to work with. And then your finger just slides up a little more on this blade. You're locked in. And you still have 3.5 inches of fantastic blade to work with, right? So ergonomics are a home run on this knife. And when it comes to the cutting, this blade is ridiculous. Like, because of how thin it is, I mentioned, the blade stock is thin, but not too thin. It's not like a lot of people think with the Atom, especially, but also the Neutron, that you can like wrench it back and forth, and I could snap that in half, right? You hear these idiots saying they can do that. It's a freaking EDC knife, first off. Why are you snapping it in half? What are you doing that requires, like, you're sticking the tip in and then, you know, you're like trying to climb a tree with it? Anyway, this is not even, I think this is thicker than both of those stocks on the Atom and the Neutron, at least from what I sort of remember. But because of how tall it is and this flat grind, it just comes down to an impressively thin edge, guys. I don't know how well you can pick it up, but it is just extremely thin. I would get some paper and cut it for you, but I have to clean it up, and it's just a mess. Just trust me, it's a freaking laser beam through paper. I've used it on a little bit of cardboard. Definitely opened a bunch of packages. This tip is very functional. Just the way it kind of comes down into this sheep's foot tip. You can get in with the tip of the blade to get into things, and then you have the belly here. It's just phenomenal, guys. So, you know, as a knife, as a cutter, in terms of comfort and ergonomics, this knife is one of the best that I've ever felt. And so, you know, that takes care of, you know, the blade and ergonomics. So let's get into carry, right? So you have this deep carry clip, which basically goes all the way to the butt end of the knife. You have, you know, a tiny bit there, nothing to worry about. It is reversible. And you have a filler tab, which is cool. It is a titanium deep carry clip, which is awesome. It goes in and out of pocket very well. The clip does, okay? Now, where I had some issues, again, this is my other gripe with the knife. So I had the action, the opening action, and then I had these thumb studs. So the way these thumb studs are designed, they have a lip, right? And what would happen is I would go to pull it out of my pocket, and the lip would catch on the seam of my jeans, especially if I was wearing like beat up jeans with a little bit of like tearing on the side of the pocket from putting knives in and out all the time. It would catch on that, and I would end up Emerson deploying the knife, basically. It would come out of my pocket, and I'd be like, oh, crap. It'd be like fully deployed, or it would be like half deployed, and then, you know, you're in your car fidgeting or whatever, and you're just like, ah, shit, I got a full blade here, or whatever you're doing. You're not expecting it, right? And it kind of shocks you. You're like, oh, okay. And then you get your shit together, and then you close it, and it's fine, right? But it was annoying. It happened to me 4 times. I carried it for 5 days total, I think. And it was like the first couple days it happened like 5 times. And I contacted TRM. And they said, oh, yeah, that happened to us one time in testing. We're going to send you some O-rings. That'll take care of it. And I was like, oh, okay. I kind of wanted to try the O-rings anyway, right? So they were kind enough to send me 2 sets of 4 different colors. So I got like red, blue, white, and black, which is really cool. So I threw the white ones on there. And I've been carrying it like that ever since. So I probably carried it another like 4 days with the O-rings on there. And yeah, I have not had an issue since. So the O-rings 100% will take care of that problem if it's a problem. A lot of people don't even have that problem, but maybe left-handed with ripped pants and a fat guy with tight jeans. I don't know, right? I'm not going to sit here and say it's an issue. It was a personal issue, and now it is gone. So no worries. And I also found that with these O-rings, I can middle finger flick a lot better. You can get behind the blade a little better, but you'll see there, right? Watch, I'll go to flick it, and I can get a little more traction with the O-ring there and flick it out. Sometimes I still fail it because of that detent I was telling you about. Like, it's just not strong. But if you give it any type of gas, it's fine. And it's just so much more fun to play with the O-ring on there, to be honest. The thumb stud or the thumb flick is pretty much the same, but you get way more traction on a Spidey flick than you did before. So O-rings are a win, guys, and I think they're a must. You can get them, I believe, from TRM themselves. I believe there's some guy on Facebook who makes them in different colors and shit like that, so you can order whatever you want. So check out the Facebook group. That's another thing I want to mention. If you're not a part of the TRM Facebook group, I think it's called Tycoons, Ticoons. It is an amazing community of people who love TRM. And the crew behind TRM are very active in there. They're always, doing some kind of lottery or giveaway or selling shadows that you didn't know was coming. So it's a really cool Facebook community. I suggest you check it out. So we talked about carry. We talked about the blade. We talked about action. We talked about ergos. And we talked about aesthetics, right? I'm adding a new one to my review style, okay? I'm going to try to remember anyway because everything's off the cuff. But I'm adding acoustics or sounds to my review because there's a lot of knives where the sounds make a difference for me one way or the other. Like my micarta Axon, I really didn't like the sounds on that. It was very dull. And then on like my Evo 2.0, the sounds are amazing. So it's like a plus to have sounds like that. This knife is pretty neutral in the sounds category. So, you get a little bit of a thud coming out and then a clack when it closes. It's nice. It's not like, ooh, I gotta have that constantly, but it's not bad. So I enjoy it. I enjoy hearing it click and clack back and forth as it opens and closes. So this is not a great example, but I think we'll see going forward how sound makes an impact on my reviews anyway. So that's the knife, guys. So a couple of things I want to cover, because I do need to go over value and recommendations, right? And then I want to touch on availability, right? Because that's a whole thing. So value-wise, $279, I believe, for G10 and 20 CB. Normally, that's not the best price. Excuse me, but we have to factor in this is 100% American-made and American-supported, all that jazz. So that, to me, gives it value. And I think $279 is fine. Why? You're going to ask, is it more than an Atom or a Neutron? Those aren't $279. They have G10 and 20 CV, Kev. Like, what the hell, right? Well, they don't have a river lock. So my guess is they had to invent and tool and figure out how to make this lock work, which is obviously making it harder for them to produce large amounts. Like, all of that goes into it. I don't know if it being a little bit of a bigger blade and outline and everything goes into pricing, but my guess is just because of the river lock, it adds that cost to it. So I think the value's fine, guys. Recommendations. So lefty, righty, doesn't matter. I love that. I love that about this knife. I can just talk about it. There's a few knives like that these days, like the Liang Ma's I've been reviewing. It's just a breath of fresh air to be able to review a knife for everybody, right? If you want one, great. If you want one, great. I don't have to sit here and say, if you're a lefty, too bad, right? So it's just nice. Recommendations. I think that anybody who is going to use their knife as an EDC tool, if you're the guy who sees a knife as a tool, I think this knife is for you. If you're like me and your knife is more of a toy, right? Like, I'm going to be honest here. I fidget with my knives. I play with my knives. I look at my knives and ogle them. I tell people about my knives and how cool they are, whatever. And then I occasionally open a package, slice some paper, strop it for fun. Occasionally something comes up and I have to use the knife, right? But I'm not using it every day at work. I'm not cutting cardboard constantly at home. I'm not in a trade where I need it all the time. I'm not doing home renovations. Like, it's not necessarily the biggest tool for me. Like, I love knives, guys. I have a channel about knives. I use knives. But if I'm being honest, it's not like knife is tool. Gotta have knife to cut thing, right? Like, it's just different for me. So I don't know how else to explain that. But, like, if you are a knife is a tool guy, this knife is for you. And it's fantastic. And it cuts like a dream. It's ambidextrous. It works fantastically with gloves. I tested that out because it was cold as hell one week. It functions fantastically and flawlessly. And with the O-rings, there's less, concerns about studs getting caught and easier to manipulate. The river locks, the lock bars, they stick out a little bit. So again, with gloves and everything, cold weather, you can get a good grip on it. And this is the funnest way to deploy this knife, by the way. It's great for that. But if you're like me, and this is jewelry or a toy, I don't know if you're going to love it as much as you want to. Because I wanted to love this knife as much as anybody, right? And I do. I like the knife, but I don't love it. It's not like it didn't blow me away, and like it's gonna be a forever keeper type deal. And please, let's go into availability. Please don't message me and ask me to buy this or trade for it. I know that you want one because I wanted one, and I know how that feels, guys. I'm usually on the other end of all that, right? I got lucky this time, all right? I asked. They were kind enough to help me out. And I really appreciate that, especially for a smaller channel like me. That was awesome of them. But please don't reach out, because if I trade this, I already have 50 people in line, and the first person is probably going to get it. So there's really no reason to even bring it up, right? I love you guys. I want to interact and communicate with you guys. I just don't want to disappoint all these people, right? By saying it's already gone or, whatever. So availability is an issue with these knives with TRM. They make as many as they can, guys. And they bring out what they can when they make them so that we can have them. They could just forget about the Shadow for a year and build up a stock, right? And then release 300 of them one day. And maybe 300 people will get them and be happy. And then we're still going to have 500 people pissed off. So the way they're doing it is they make 10, they sell 10. They sprinkle them or whatever. It's a knife. Like, it sucks you have to wait and you can't get what you want. And I know, but usually if you're diligent enough, you keep your eye on the Facebook groups and Knife Swap and Instagram, and you do that kind of stuff, eventually you'll get one. You just don't harp on it too much, and don't leave those comments where you're hating on TRM because of how they're doing it. They've tried so many different ways to do drops. They're trying as best they can. They want you guys to have a Shadow. Trust me. They're selling them for $280. They want you to have one. They just can't make enough right now. Too many people love their products. That's a good problem, guys. So just keep interacting in the group, being friendly. And again, I really want to thank Mary Ann Halpern for hooking me up. Really appreciate the people over at TRM. You guys are amazing. And you guys made an amazing knife. Again, as a knife, this thing is amazing. And that's first and foremost what a knife company is trying to do, right? So there you have it, guys. That is my full overview and review on the TRM Shadow. I really appreciate you guys for letting me rant and rave today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will catch you later.